I started this painting about 5-6 months ago now, and it's, I think, the most detailed painting I've ever painted. It's actually a custom order from my father. And so I decided to film everything from the beginning to end, and that's what I wanted to show you in this video. It's also been the first large painting where I painted in fluorescent paint, so it's going to glow in the night. I'm going to show you that too. It's been a lot of different works and a lot of different details, and then merging it all together, and it's really been a little bit of an odyssey, and I am so looking forward to sharing that with you. So I'm going to start painting this river now, and I'll show you a little bit of that, and then let's go to the beginning first though, and start up where this all began 5 months ago. It really began just with this, obviously a blank canvas, and just starting to paint. I had an idea. My father kind of told me he wanted a open landscape, a sunset, a green, an open landscape, but he didn't really tell me much more. So the way I just do that is then I just start with kind of this rainbow pattern. You just start with a kind of a purple blue, and then a greenish blue, and then you do a little bit of yellow, and then some oranges below, then the red, and you kind of have this rainbow. Purple at the bottom, the mountains can go blue, and then you just do the landscape kind of with blues and greens. I can then start to see the landscape kind of come into being, and I painted in a river, and then I kind of have an idea of the depth and so on. Then once I managed to get the sun in, and I put a little glow on some skies, some clouds in front of the sun, I had a kind of an idea of the landscape. This is now actually a few months afterwards. It was dry and I can paint over it. So at that point it's possible to then just paint layers on top of the old landscape. And this was basically in one sitting, when it was dry enough to just kind of, okay, let's go, let's paint in the painting, and just put in trees, and you start to just get some depth. And at this stage it's a lot of work. That's basically what it is, because I know where everything is supposed to be, and I can just kind of put it there. And I think here again, after I think a month and it had dried, I then painted in other details, and the painting, instead of just being an open landscape, it's starting to get a little bit of soul to it. And my father mentioned he wanted some flowers, so I just kind of racked my head and I painted in some mulberry flowers here. They only grow in the mountains here, and this was about autumn time, so I started in May, and this probably must have been around August when they started to flower. And because they are really late, I think actually some of them died in the frost. And then the landscape kind of started coming into being. I added another, that's the Norwegian national flower. I'm not sure what it's called. Røsling in Norwegian. And some leaves on the flowers here. The foreground is often much more difficult than the background, because you have to have details on just such another level. People actually know what things look like when they're really close, and if they're far away you can kind of just paint a blob and you already have a tree. So I started painting in the stones, and my father had mentioned that I always paint ancient forests, and he'd been with me in an ancient forest here. So I really wanted that feel. So I added lots of trees and dead trees, and branches and so on everywhere, so that you get this really ancient forest feel, that it's kind of, no one's been here and cleaned up this forest. It's just you can see back in time many hundreds of years where the old trees have fallen and the new trees are growing. And I really wanted that feeling for this landscape. And that was one of the things that I really wanted to do here, was just to really paint the details in. It's a large landscape, and I always like this feeling of, all right, let's just go deep into the landscape, let's paint the tiny little details, let's really go for it. And I really did in this landscape. I just took the time to paint tiny little trees over the entire landscape, so that you can look for hours and hours, and you're always able to discover a little bit more. Often it's not really necessary. If you stand a few meters away from a landscape, it's not necessary to paint in the absolutely tiniest little details. But I really wanted to do that here. I've always been annoyed as a child when I saw these huge landscapes, and I just thought, oh, these are just wonderful, all of the details. And you go close, and then there are no details. Because what they've done, they're just gonna fool the eye, because you don't need to have them incredibly detailed. Your eyes can't see details far away anyway. But if you go really close to a painting, of course you can. So that's what I've done here. I just kind of fulfilled my childhood love of details in large paintings, and I like to do that anyway. It's just rarely that I get the chance to really go a bit crazy with a big painting like this, because obviously you can't just spend too much time. But I kind of did that here. So I went back again and again, and I really just painted all of the tiniest little details that I could. I kind of did all of the classical things from a landscape painting in this one. It's kind of a motif that I come back to again and again. This is kind of the classic landscape. You had a rainbow patterned sky with the sun and the green landscape, and then of course once it was dry after a few weeks, I then painted in the sun rays. It's always such a scary thing to do, to paint in these rays. It really has to be completely dry because if it's not, there is no way you can remove the rays. You can't do anything because you're just destroying the landscape. But thankfully it was dry at this stage, and I could follow the path with my brush. This is a technique that I've learned after a while, because it's just impossible to get the true straight lines that you need for sun rays without doing something like this. My hand I had kind of twisted in the snow here, so I had to have a little thing on it. And then once I got the sun rays, it would then be possible to come in and really know where it's supposed to be really light. Because at this point, as you can see, the landscape is still quite dark. I like to do that, just paint in the shadows first and always keep it darker so that you can light it up afterwards. And that's what I did here. So now we're getting in the sun, and we know the direction where the sun is going to come from. And then it's possible to use those sun rays and then really light up the painting. And I just kept coming back to the painting. At some points I would put it away for a few weeks, and then I came back and I saw some details that were missing. So here I painted in a nettle and some other leaves, and really just came back again and again so that they could shine a little bit more. Put in a little bit more light on the mulberries here. And at this point here, it's, as you can see, everything is where it's supposed to be. And now it's possible to really get that sun into the painting, as I said before. From this point on, it's all about putting sun and shade on top of the details that I have. So here, painting the edges of the tree so that you get that sun hitting it, following along with the branches and putting tiny little details, but using the color of the sun. So here I'm painting in the needles with some really bright greens. And this was also the point where I got my fluorescent paint. So this wasn't planned, but I had these really strong fluorescent paints, and I started painting with those to get that really, when the really strong sunlight hits a blade of grass, for instance, it will really shine with the lush green. So I started just using the fluorescent paint, not so that it would shine at night or anything. I just started to use my oranges and my greens on this painting to really make it shine under the sun rays, which of course then had the side effect of glowing at night. I then decided to actually use that. I got some yellow too, and I put that into the sun, because of course if it's glowing at night, it can't just be the trees that glow. So I got that and I put it into the clouds, and then I turned on the black light and I started painting under the black light. And I just didn't stop. It was just so much fun, and it's just this incredible experience of seeing the landscape just starting to glow. So I then just kind of kept going and painted the fluorescent paints. It's a fluorescent oil stick that I use here. So it's oil painting, but it just glows under a black light. So I painted it on a little bit on the flowers, on the trees, and into the mountains and the sun. And as you can see here, it's now just starting to glow. And here it is now. After all this time, we have the landscape painting. Now, what I really wanted to show you is what you saw in the end. That really is the one thing that is really, really different with this painting from all the other paintings I painted. Although it's coming into the large paintings that I'm painting at the moment. It's this nighttime effect. So if we turn off the light here, I can turn it down stage by stage, and you can see that it's starting to glow. So what I did just at the end there, you can see the area is starting to glow. And when we turn off the light, I especially like the stage in the middle, where you can still see everything, but you have this glow of the landscape. And then if we turn it all off, then of course we have this. What I suspect I'm going to be doing with this painting, I'm going to have to see if my father is ever going to receive it. But there's just so much more you could be doing here. For instance, just extending this area where it's glowing. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little venture into the journey of this landscape and these last 5 months that I've been working on it. It's been a lot of fun, and it's just incredible the relationship that you get when you spend so much time with a painting. Of course, I've painted everything, but I've come back to everywhere so many times that I kind of have memories of all of these areas. I have music tracks that I can kind of, when I painted this or I painted this, I have reels and shorts in my head when I created, for instance, when I created the Sunrays, or I created this little hill here. So it's just remarkable, the all of the memories and all of the different feelings that go into a painting like this, and the bigger the more is just going into the painting. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I can take you along on many other journeys in other paintings that I have. So I hope I'll see you in the next one.